Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's double game review. We're kind of doing this in honor of Memorial Day. Tonight's games are Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Now, these are two phenomenal games that really did launch the PlayStation 2, and without these games, the PlayStation 2 probably never would have been at the level that it was at. So let's go ahead and get this thing started, shall we? Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Now, this was probably one of the most anticipated games that the PlayStation 2 ever really had, even more so than Metal Gear Solid 3. It introduced to us new characters, very interesting story twists and storylines, and it was a very thrilling game, despite some of its slight drawbacks. So let me go ahead and start. Now, first off, I want to say that the graphics for the PlayStation 2 were amazing. Although some of the lip sync was kind of off, and I understand it was actually dubbed in Japanese and later had redubbed for English, I do think some of the lip movements were off. But this game was extremely fun. Not just in terms of the gameplay, but I mean everything around it and the graphics. I mean, you could do so much. I mean, there was like seagulls flying around. You could shoot them. There were rats. I mean, that would crawl around. There's little details, little hidden spots here and there. It was just interesting to see all this. And then, of course, there is classic stuff such as the bandana or the wigs. I'll go into this later on. Now, the gameplay has always been a major factor of Metal Gear. I've always said that while Metal Gear's gameplay has always been lacking, the graphics and storyline are far none some of the best ever put out. Metal Gear Solid 2 really redefined the era's graphics and graphics design. But the gameplay has always been something that bothered me. I mean, first off, it was kind of ridiculous, you know. I mean, a person's vision on the map would be no more than maybe 15 feet away, which, as we all know, really isn't true. A person should be able to see an intruder who's further than that, and that's where the game kind of falls apart. I mean, Splinter Cell is probably a more accurate stealth game, but I don't really believe that Metal Gear should ever be rated as an accurate stealth game. I think things such as footprints, water trails, sounds of someone jumping into water, stuff like this are details that we've seen in Splinter Cell a lot. And so I don't really think Metal Gear can be truly rated as the best stealth game. But I believe that Metal Gear is better than Splinter Cell. Okay, Solid Snake can kick that pansy's ass any day of the week. However, saying that, we met a new pansy named Raiden in the second game. It introduced us to Raiden, who we didn't know a lot about his backstory. At least in the beginning, you thought you might, but later on, you don't. It's interesting how they twist Solid Snake and how they kind of alter everything within the series, and also the name of Iroquois Pliskin was an interesting alias. If you play the game, you'll know what I mean. And if you remember the Kurt Russell movies. It was just a phenomenal game. The soundtrack was very military. In the second game, the soundtrack is very... I mean, I can really believe a marching band would go down the street during a Veterans Day or Memorial Day parade. Metal Gear Solid 2, I really would have to give a 9.5. It mainly gets this because I didn't like the character Raiden very much, and some of the stuff that you have to do along the big shell, it just seemed kind of long and ridiculous at points. And although what happens in the story is amazing, I think that he is just too much of a crybaby. I mean, it was kind of hard, you know, to listen to Kodak messages and him saying that, I killed a man, you don't know how hard it is, this is too tough, I want to go home. He's a whiner. You know, it's better to hear someone like Solid Snake talk about when he first met Otacon and how Otacon pissed his pants. That was funny. So a 9.5 for great game, great sounds, great story, but lackluster characters, and the gameplay was so-so. But that brings me to Metal Gear Solid 3. Now, Raiden is not in this one. This actually takes place even before the very first Metal Gear game for the NES. You play the character of quote-unquote Naked Snake. Spoiler alert, it's actually Big Boss Snake's father. You get to see a post-World War II Cold War era, which is very interesting. It used a quote-unquote CQC tactics, which, I mean, you can like throw a guy onto the ground. I really didn't like that too much, because although I like throwing someone down, the idea of CQC, I really wanted to do what they show you on the cover. I mean, right when you start it up, you see him how, you know, he'll like twist the guy's arm, take a weapon out of his hand, and then take him down. That's more fun. But just being able to throw someone down is kind of boring. I thought that the whole backpack system was kind of ridiculous. I mean, yeah, it's a lot easier to sort your weapons and pick which ones you want, but you know, I don't think there's any real need to have such a large amount of weapons. You know, I don't see a point in having both a AK-47 and an M16 in the same backpack. It was just kind of ridiculous. The idea of you had to fix yourself out in the field if you got shot, you had to remove the bullets, close the wounds, disinfect it, put a bandage on it. I mean, it's a nice feature, it really is, but the thing is you're not going to really patch yourself up like that. I mean, let's face reality. I mean, there were times where I saw, you know, a bullet, which was odd enough right here. I think he should have been dead. You know, I mean, the wounds just didn't seem real. You know, when you're removing arrows from your head, it just doesn't really seem all that real. And then you had to eat to keep up your stamina, which was something else I thought was kind of stupid. I mean, although the idea is he's traveling in a forest, he's not traveling in a lengthy, long, continuous forest or jungle. It's broken up into small areas, as every Metal Gear game has always been. I mean, it really is just room, room, room. It's not like one massive forest that you have to explore. So I thought the whole stamina and having to eat thing was just kind of a joke and not necessary. I thought the camouflage idea, well, I'll give it, it was interesting. I don't think someone out in the field is going to carry around 12 uniforms and then keep, you know, a dozen different kinds of face paints and take time out in the field to switch into different outfits. It was just kind of ridiculous. And if Metal Gear is going to base itself on a bit of realism, they might want to cut this feature out in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 4, which I do believe they do. So it had a little bit too much to it, which really, in my opinion, brought the game down. Now, like every other Metal Gear, there's a lot to find, there's a lot of Easter eggs, there's a lot of unlockables, a lot of different weapons and tricks, and overall it is worth trying to discover everything that there is in the game. So very much like its predecessor, it's a great game, however, it drops down to a 9 for me. Again, great storyline. The music wasn't so much military, it was more James Bondish. And as is the story is more like a James Bond flick than it is the stealth espionage action-adventure game that this game really is. So, a nice change in the story. I really wouldn't say that the story was any better, but it was at least interesting. So, in the battle, a 9 to a 9.5, Metal Gear Solid 2 was the better game. I just thought that the whole James Bond type-esque storyline really wasn't necessary. It changed Solid Snake from being the Snake character to being a superior badass character to be a James Bond suave cat, which I really wasn't that fond of. Bring back the badass and leave Pierce Brosnan at home. Alright, Phoenix, thank you for letting me post this up on the Metal Gear Solid 4 trailer I know you got. Alright, man, everyone, I'll see you later and have a good Memorial Day.